This is Professor Cruz. Welcome to week 6 of World Cultural Geography. Our topic this week is folk and popular culture. We will consider two major categories of material culture, folk and popular culture. Folk culture and popular culture differ in their patterns of origins, diffusion, and distribution. These are words that we keep hearing over and over. Folk culture is practiced by small homogeneous groups living in isolated rural areas most of the time. Popular culture is found in large heterogeneous societies that share certain customs despite differences in other personal characteristics. Our questions for consideration: where are folk and popular leisure activities distributed? Where are folk and popular material culture distributed? Who has access to folk and popular culture? Why do folk and popular culture face sustainability challenges? And what are some examples of folk and popular culture in your life? Let's start by redefining culture. Culture has been defined several ways in your textbook and by us in the class. Culture is defined as a collection of social customs. Customs are repetitive acts of groups. In Japan, one example of a custom is the pusher or oshiya. This is a person employed by the subways to push people into trains. You can see that this person is wearing a uniform, including white gloves, a mask, and a hat. While we might think this is odd, this is very typical part of Japanese culture. Other cultures in Japan include bowing to greet people and taking off your shoes when entering homes, some offices, and some businesses establishments. Usually, slippers are provided for visitors. Another custom in Japan is to not draw attention to yourself. Women and men typically wear muted colors such as taupe, black, gray. They don't want to stand out. This is not a custom in Japanese culture to stand out. When I visited Japan, I saw a woman wearing a red leather outfit one day and wondered where she was going. Was wearing red leather her habit? So a habit is a repetitive act of an individual. You might notice that I have a habit in dressing. I typically wear black pants and a black top, and then I change the sweater or jacket to complete the outfit. This is my habit. Can you think of other examples of customs and habits? Immigrant groups change the cultural landscape of countries that they arrive to, such as the United States, which has a variety of foods from around the world. Chinese immigrants apparently created sweet and sour pork and other dishes to sell to Americans. They aren't really authentic Chinese cuisines, but they weren't representative on the cultural landscape before Chinese came. A more authentic cuisine is sushi. Germans are one of the largest groups of immigrants in the United States. One food custom that is transferred to the American cultural landscape is bratwurst and sauerkraut. Can you give other examples of how migration of different cultural groups has contributed to the diverse food customs in the United States? Culture originates from a hearth, a center of innovation. The origin of folk culture are from anonymous sources and unknown dates, usually. While the hearth of modern football, or soccer as Americans call it, can be traced to 19th century England, the origins of the game are more uncertain. Football-like games can be traced to ancient China, ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and 14th century England, or before. Popular music and other elements of popular culture, such as food and clothing, arise from a combination of advances in industrial technology and increases in leisure time. Popular culture trends tend to be transmitted by way of hierarchical diffusion. It diffuses rapidly and extensively from hearths or nodes of innovation with the help of modern communication. Examples include American popular music during the 1940s, When the Armed Forces Radio Network broadcast music to American soldiers and citizens where American soldiers were stationed or fighting during World War II, other people and nations got exposure to a popular American music. The dulcimer's origins are probably the Appalachian Mountains, but could have been relocated and modified from immigrants from Sweden, Norway, Germany, France, or other nations. We're just not sure. Appearing early in the 19th century, the use of the dulcimer has slowly diffused beyond the Appalachian region, but remains in the folk culture category. Soccer is an example of a sport that started as a local custom that has transformed into popular culture. As stated earlier, its origins are questionable. The origins of modern soccer are in England and diffused to other countries slowly through relocation and hierarchical diffusion. This map shows the nations that participated in the World Cup in 2014. There are participating nations from all continents except Antarctica, which there are no nations. One could argue that football, or soccer to Americans, has become globalized. And please keep in mind that soccer will be referred to football on your quiz and in other places throughout the semester. Why have sports such as American football or cricket not diffused as widely as soccer? Popular culture is diffused faster and further than ever with the invention of and diffusion in the forms of electronic communication like television and now smartphones. These technologies allow images and messages about popular culture to spread instantaneously across the globe, which we may regret later. Several decades ago, a large percentage of the world's people did not have access to television because of their lack of income, electricity, or service. Watching TV is now one of the most popular leisure activities in the world. The technology by which television is delivered changed throughout the last 50 or 60 years. Internet services has diffused at a rapid pace throughout the world, much faster than TV did. It is likely to fuse even further in the years ahead. People in the United States have dominated the use of social media during the early years, but now social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest are around the world, but still enjoy their greatest popularity in the United States. But all over the world, people are accessing these sites at a rapidly increasing pace. Since media outlets are largely Western, their content may present values and beliefs in conflict with those of a particular place receiving these broadcasts. Governments may perceive the Western control as a threat to their national systems and attempt to restrict the programming available to their people. In some places around the globe, residents have used satellite dishes to find Western programming otherwise not available. Governments throughout the world are also trying to limit the internet content in their countries. Social media has started to play an even more significant role in breaking the monopoly of government control over the diffusion of information in many countries. This map shows government levels of censorship of internet information. The countries in orange show the highest levels of government censorship or filtering, while the countries in blue show little evidence or no evidence of filtering. We may believe this or not. You see the highest level of filtering in China and Iran, the next highest levels in selected Middle Eastern and African nations, and selective filtering across Asia and Africa. Countries limit access to four types of internet content: political content, social content, security content, and internet tools. This has been a short introduction to folk and popular culture. Questions for our consideration this week were, as we move further, provide examples of how folk culture has evolved into popular culture. And what are some particular examples of folk and popular culture in your life? Next week, we will consider language. Why is an international language needed? What is the international language? Which languages do most people speak? Continue to do geography as you move throughout space this week and explore the cultural landscape.